Brought to you by Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Sulky Threads. Express yourself with Sulky and create with confidence.
Welcome to Quiltmaker's Block Network. I'm Eileen Fowler from Quiltmaker magazine. Today we're going to talk about Boxed In, block number 171, designed by Julie Herman from Quiltmaker's 100 Blocks Volume 2. For this 12-inch pieced block, you're going to need some assortment of batik patches, 2.5-inch squares, and some strips from another fabric, a contrasting fabric. The fabric requirements you'll need and the dimensions are on your screen. Okay, because this block uses 2.5-inch squares, 2.5-inch pre-cut strips are ideal for cutting your squares. And you'll want a variety of different colors to make it look kind of nice and scrappy. If you don't have strips of 2.5-inch width, you can also use 5-inch charm squares. You can see that this 5-inch charm square yields 4 different 2.5-inch squares. You can also use 10-inch squares, like this patch here, and that will yield 16 different 2.5-inch patches. To assemble this block, you'll want to sew 4 of the 2-inch squares together in the center. You'll add the small strips to the outside edges, add a strip to each end of that. You'll sew 3 squares together for this side, sew those to the center. You'll sew 5 patches together for each of these ends, sew that to the center. You'll add the strip on the outside and the strips on the top and bottom. Accuracy is important when sewing the patches together. You can see that we've sewn 3 squares together here, and you can see by this little tape measure that it's exactly 2 inches apart, which is correct. That gives you the accurate 1/4-inch seam allowance. These 3 squares were sewn together with a little larger seam allowance. You can see it's not quite 2 inches. And you see them next to each other. You see that there's a gap here, so your patch is not going to fit together as well. On this upper example, the seam allowance is a little smaller, so that makes a wider distance between the 2 squares. Let's look at some finished blocks. This first block uses the fabrics we were showing in the beginning. You've got an assortment of the squares, and we used a neutral contrasting fabric for the sashings on all sides here. We can take the same block, and instead of the gray, we've used a black here, and it gives it a completely different look. What if we did something really different with these pieces? This is a gradated fabric. You can see that it starts with a light orange on this side and goes darker toward the middle of the fabric. From that orange fabric, we cut the lighter orange for these strips and a darker orange for the outside strips. If we took the original block and laid it out 3 by 3, this is what your quilt would look like. If we alternated the first 2 blocks, you might get something like this. We used the 3rd block on point and alternated where the light orange and dark orange strips were to make this quilt. Boxed In and 99 other fun blocks are available in Quiltmaker's 100 Blocks Volume 2. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you'll join us again soon on Quiltmaker's Block Network.